everyone, welcome to the PYQ analysis series of Drishti IAS, and today's session is about modern history, and in this session we are going to analyze previous year's 6-year question, which is 2019 to 2024, and we already had covered ancient and medieval history and art and culture in previous 2 episodes of history. Also, we had started this series from 15th of February, so do watch all the episodes of this particular series. Now we'll start our session. So first of all, we are going to discuss the first question of this session, and first question we are starting with the consider the following pairs. So here in this session we have this party and here we have the leader, and we have to find out that which of the pairs are correctly matched. So we have Bharatiya Janasangh, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Socialist Party, C. Rajagopalachari, Congress for Democracy, Jagjeevan Ram, Swatantra Party, Acharya Narendra Dev. How many of the above are correctly matched? And the answer should be B. Let's see that whether the B is the correct answer or not, and the B is the correct answer. Bharatiya Janasangh was founded in 1951 by Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, hence pair 1 is correctly matched. Jai Prakash Narayan, Ram Manohar Lohia and Acharya Narendra Dev were prominent leaders of the Socialist Party, hence pair 2 is correctly matched. And the Congress for Democracy was an Indian political party founded in 1977 by Jagjeevan Ram, hence pair 3 is correctly matched. And Swatantra Party was founded in the year 1959 by leaders opposing the socialist policies of the Congress government. Some of the prominent leaders of the time including C. Rajagopalachari, Minu Masani, N.G. Ranga collaborated to form Liberal Conservative Party. The party stood for the market-based economy and dismantling of the license Raj, hence pair 4 is correctly matched. So we'll just quickly revise. Bharatiya Janasangh, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Jai Prakash Narayan, Ram Manohar Lohia and Acharya Narendra founded Socialist Party, and they were the prominent leader of the Socialist Party. So this is the one. Then Congress for Democracy was founded by Jagjeevan Ram, and the leaders of Swatantra Party are C. Rajagopalachari, Minu Masani and N.G. Ranga. Now we are going to discuss the second one. By which one of the following acts was the Governor General of Bengal designated as Governor General of India? And we have 4 options: the Regulating Act, the Pitt's India Act, the Charter Act of 1793 and the Charter Act of 1833. And the correct answer is the Charter Act of 1833. Now look for the explanation part. With Charter Act of 1833, the Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India. This is very important point. With exclusive legislative powers, and this act was the final step towards the centralization in British India, and Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. So therefore the option D is the correct answer. So coming to the next one. With reference to the Indian history, consider the following statement. The Dutch established their factories, warehouses on the east coast of lands granted to them by Gajpati rulers. Alfonso de Albuquerque captured Goa from the Bijapur Sultanate. The English East India Company established a factory at Madras on a plot of land leased from a representative of the Vijayanagar Empire. And here they are asking that which of the statements given above are correct. So we have options 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, and 1, 2 and 3. And the answer should be 1, 2 and 3 only. Let's check the answer. And here the answer is 2 and 3 only. Now we'll identify that why 2 and 3 only are correct. So in Odisha, the Ganga dynasty was succeeded by another glorious dynasty known as Suryavamsi Gajpatis. The Dutch established their first factory in Masulipatam. During the advent of Dutch, Odisha was under the Mughal rulers, hence statement 1 is not correct. Then in January 1510, Alfonso de Albuquerque attacked Goa, and at that time Goa was under the ruler of Bijapur, and the ruler of Bijapur was already battling with the internal aggression which is happening in his state, and In this opportunity, Alfonso de Burquerque captured the Goa. So that's why statement 2 is correct. Then in 1611, the British established their first factory in South India at Machulipatnam. But soon the main center of activity shifted to the Madras. So here you may have confusion between the Machulipatnam and Surat. So we are going to also clarify this doubt in the further question. But here you should just find out that in South India. Now here we are going to discuss the next one. In the first quarter of the 17th century, in which of the following were the factories of the English East India Company located? And we have options: Broch, Chicacole, Trichinopoli. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only, 1 and 2, 3 only, 2 and 3. And the answer should be A, 1 only. Now we'll identify that whether A is the correct answer and A is the correct answer. So with Captain Thomas Best's victory over the Portuguese 1612, the English East India Company established their first factory at Surat in 1613. So here there is a confusion that which was the first factory established by the British. So in South India it is Machulipatnam. In Surat we have the first overall factory in 1613. So why the Surat was called as the first factory set up by the British India? Because here we can see that whatever we have done in Machulipatnam, it was very temporary in nature, but the first operational and what you can say permanent factory established in Surat. So that's why Surat has been counted as the first factory established by the British India. Subsequently, Sir Thomas Roe came as an ambassador of King James I and secured permission from Jahangir to establish factories at Agra, Ahmedabad and Broch. In January 1618, the English factories in the dominions of Mughal Empire numbered 5 in all: Agra, Ahmedabad, Burhanpur, in Khandes, Broch and Surat. So that's why the Broch is the correct answer. Now we are going to discuss the next one, which is about which one of the following statements does not apply to the system of subsidiary alliance introduced by Lord Wellesley. So here the question itself giving you one answer, that who has introduced the subsidiary alliance, and it has been introduced by the Lord Wellesley. Here are the options we have: to maintain a large standing army at others' expense, to keep India's safe from the Napoleonic danger, to secure a fixed income for the company, to establish British paramountcy over the Indian states. So here we'll find out that what could be the answer, and I think the answer should be the C. So here we'll find out that whether the answer is correct or not, and the answer C is the correct answer. The subsidiary alliance system was used by the Lord Wellesley, who was the Governor General from 1798 to 1805. Actually, it was French Governor Dupleix who was first employed a similar system, under which the local Indian kingdoms were promised protection in lieu of payment. But Wellesley developed it as a policy and applied it very systematically. So that's why Wellesley has been given a credit for introducing subsidiary alliance in India. So in any confusion, you should always stick the Wellesley. Now we are going to discuss the key features of the subsidiary alliance. So under the system, the allying Indian state ruler was compelled to accept permanent stationing of a British force within his territory and to pay for its maintenance. And by making any relation with other countries and with other, in fact, kingdom also, the ruler has to take approval from the British East India Company. So this is also one of the features of the subsidiary alliance. So in a way, you can say that there was a permanent stationing of a British officer in the Indian court. The British would defend the ruler from enemies and adopt a policy of non-interference in the internal matters of the allied state. From above points, it is clear that statement 1D apply to the system of subsidiary alliance. Therefore, option C is the correct answer. Now we are going to discuss the IAS Prelims 2025, and this is of the general science. So we have, this is for the online. So we have 400 plus hours of classes, unlimited view time, prelims test series, and the medium is English. If you want to know information about such classes, you can call on to the number 87501 87501. Coming to the next one, which is about consider the following freedom fighters: Barindra Kumar Ghosh, Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee, Rash Bihari Bose. Who of the above were actively associated with the Gadar party? So here you have to be very much clear that here they are asking about the Gadar party, and your options are 1 and 2, 2 only, 1 and 3, and 3 only. And the answer should be the D, which is the 3 only. Now let's find out whether the answer is correct, and the answer is correct, which is D. So we'll also discuss about the other factors. Barindra Kumar Ghosh was a founding member of Jugantar, so he was not associated with the Gadar party. Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee became a member of the Anushilan Samiti, and he was also a founding member of Hindustan Public Association, and he was not associated with the Gadar party. In the comment section, you have to tell me that who else are founder and who else are the supporter and what you can say member of the Hindustan Republic Association. And now we'll come to the Rash Bihari Bose. So Rash Bihari Bose was an Indian revolutionary leader. He was one of the key organizers of the Gadar mutiny and was associated with the Gadar party. So that's why the option D is the correct answer. Now we are going to discuss the next one. With reference to the 8th August 1942 in Indian history, which of the following statement is correct? The Quit India resolution was adopted by AICC. The Viceroy Executive Council was expanded to include more Indian. The Congress ministries resigned in 7 provinces. Cripps proposed an Indian Union with full dominion status once the Second World War was over. And here we'll find out the answer. The answer should be the A. On 8th August 1942, Mahatma Gandhi gave the clarion call to end the British rule and launched the Quit India movement at the session of All India Congress Committee in Mumbai. And during this movement, Mahatma Gandhi gave the call for do and die. And in his speech, which has been delivered at Gwalior Tank Maidan, he said do and die. And now Gwalior Tank Maidan is also known as Agast Kranti Maidan because the movement happened in the month of August. The Indian Council Act 1909, or also known as Morley-Minto reforms. So in this particular thing, you have to tell me in the comment section that who was Morley and who was Minto. Who was Viceroy and who was the Secretary, was an act of British Parliament that introduced a few reforms in the legislative councils and increased the involvement of Indians in the governance of the British India. The Indian Council Act 1909 empowered the Governor General to nominate one Indian member to the Executive Council, leading to the appointment of Satyendra Sinha as the first Indian member. This is also a very important fact. The Government of India Act 1919 increased the number of Indians in the council to 3. Here we'll add more features to it. The Congress ministry resigned in 7 provinces in 1939 in protest against Viceroy Lord Linlithgow's action of declaring India to be belligerent in the Second World War. So without any consultation, the Viceroy has decided that Indians would participate. And into that protest, the Congress who has a government in the 7 states, they had resigned. And after the 7 provinces, resignation from the 7 provinces, the British were so much relaxed because they do not have to feel interference by these powers. The Cripps mission was sent to India by the British government in March 1942 to obtain India's cooperation for the British war efforts in the Second World War. It was headed by Sir Stafford Cripps. Some of the recommendation of the mission included an Indian Union with dominion status would be set up. India would be free to decide its relation with the Commonwealth and free to participate in the United Nations and other international bodies. After the end of the war, a constituent assembly would be convened to frame a new constitution. So these are the features of the Cripps mission, which is very much important. Now we are going to discuss another one. In the context of colonial India, Shah Nawaz Khan, Prem Kumar Sehgal and Gurubaksh Singh Dhillo are remembered as leaders of Swadeshi and boycott movement, members of interim government in 1946, members of drafting committee in the Constituent Assembly, officers of the Indian National Army. And the answer should be the D, which is officers of the Indian National Army. So the answer is D. The Prem Kumar Sehgal, Shah Nawaz Khan and Gurubaksh Singh Dhillo were the second tier commanders of the Indian National Army. They underwent court-martial procedure by the British at the Red Fort in 1945 and were sentenced to death. However, following the widespread protest from the people, they were released. Therefore, the option B, D is the correct answer. Now we'll discuss with reference to the Madanapalle of Andhra Pradesh, which of the following statements is correct? Pingali Venkaiah designed the tricolor Indian national flag here. Patabhi Sitaramaiah led the Quit India movement of Andhra region from here. Rabindranath Tagore translated the national anthem from Bengali to English here. Madam Blavatsky and Cornel Alcott set up headquarters of Theosophical Society first here. So answer should be the C. Rabindranath Tagore translated the national anthem from Bengali to English here. Now look for the explanation part. The original song Jan Gana Man was written in Bengali and was but in a Sanskritized dialect known as Sadhu Bhasa. And the idea of translating the song from Bengali to English came to Rabindranath Tagore while he was visiting the Besant Theosophical College on the invitation of Irish poet James H. Cousins. He penned down the English translation during his stay at Madanapalle, a small town in Chittoor district of Andhra Pradesh. Jana Gana Man was officially proclaimed as India's national anthem on 24th of January 1950. So here you should know the date that when it was officially proclaimed as India's national anthem. Now we'll discuss another question. Who among the following is associated with Songs from Prison, a translation of ancient Indian religious lyrics in English? Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Jawaharlal Nehru, Mohandas Karamchandra Gandhi, Sarojini Naidu, and the answer should be the C, which is M.K. Gandhi. And the answer is C. Songs from Prison, translation of Indian lyrics made in jail, was collection of songs and lyrics by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi written during his prison in Yerwada jail, Pune. It was published by John Hoyland. So that's why the option C is the correct answer. Now we'll discuss with reference to the book Desher Katha written by Sakharam Ganesh Deuskar. So in the question itself we got a important fact that who has written Desher Katha. So Desher Katha was written by Sakharam Ganesh Deuskar during the freedom struggle. Consider the following statement. It warned against the colonial state hypnotic conquest of mind. It inspired the performance of Swadeshi street plays and folk songs. The use of Desh by Deuskar was in the specific context of the region of Bengal. So here the two option would be correct, which is statement 1 and statement 2, and 3 would be wrong because he used Deuskar for all over the country, not just for the Bengal. So that's why the option A would be the correct answer. Now let's see the explanation. So Sakharam Ganesh Deuskar, a close associate of Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, published a book entitled Desher Katha in 1904. And in this book, he has described the exploitative and commercial activities of Britishers towards Indian, and he has also given highlights about the Swadeshi movement. And in his whole book, he has discussed about he has used the word Desh. It means it has been used for the whole India, and this book was also banned by the British government. So that's why the option A is the correct answer. Coming to the IAS Prelims GS plus CSET online course. So we have 500 plus hours of class, watch unlimited times, 30 free tests, GS plus CSET. The medium is in English. And if you want to know more information about such things, you can call on to the number 87501. You can also download the Drishti Learning app. Now coming to the next one. With reference to the British colonial rule in India, consider the following statements. Mahatma Gandhi was instrumental in the abolition of the system of indentured labor. In Lord Chelmsford War Conference, Mahatma Gandhi did not support the resolution on recruiting Indians for World War. Consequent upon the breaking of salt law by Indian people, the Indian National Congress was declared illegal by the colonial rulers. So here we are going to discuss that which one is correct. So I think 2 would be the incorrect one and this would be the correct ones. So if the 2 would be the incorrect one, answer should be the B, which is 1 and 3. Now let's see. So the answer is B. In March 1916, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya moved a resolution in the Imperial Legislative Council for the abolition of the indentured labor. However, Mahatma Gandhi in his autobiography, My Experiment with Truth, affirmed that he drafted the first petition protesting against the system of indentured labor in 1894. So that's why he has been given the credit and he has been instrumental for indentured labor system and for the abolition of the indentured labor system during the British time. So if there will be confusion between Madan Mohan Malviya and M.K. Gandhi, the answer would be the M.K. Gandhi. In the Young India article dated 27 November 1920, to every Englishman in India, Gandhi quoted his recruiting campaign which was carried out in Kaira district, Gujarat in support of the British cause in World War I, according to the promise made at War Conference of Delhi. So this is Gandhi's opinion regarding the what you can say World War I and India's involvement. The Salt March ended in April 1930 and between June and August, several Congress working committee and leaders were arrested and Congress as a political association was declared illegal by the British government. So that's why hence statement 3 is correct and the option B is the correct answer. Now we'll discuss the another question. With reference to the Indian history, Alexander Rea, A.H. Longhurst, Robert Swell and James Burgess and Walter Elliot were associated with archaeological excavation, establishment of English press in colonial India, establishment of churches in princely states, construction of railways in colonial India, and the answer should be the A, archaeological excavation. So let's look at what they were. So they were the archaeologists. Alexander Rea, a British archaeologist who worked in India, was known for unearthing treasure of over 9,000 objects in Adichanallur in 1903 and 4. A.H. Longhurst was an archaeologist associated with the excavation in Chandraketugad, Bengal. Robert Sewell was a collector and magistrate in Madras Presidency in colonial India. Like many civil servants turned Indologist of those times, he was a scholar in history and also in charge of the archaeology department. James Burgess was the founder of Indian Antiquary in 1872 and an important archaeologist of India in 19th century. Walter Elliot, a Scottish civil servant in India, was an archaeologist, numismatist and collector. He excavated the Amravati in 1845. So that's why option A is the correct answer. So coming to the next one. In the Government of India Act 1919, the functions of the provincial government were divided into reserved and transferred subject. Which of the following were treated as reserved subject? Administration of justice, local self-government, land revenue and police. Select the correct answer using the code given below: 1, 2 and 3, 2, 3 and 4, 1, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 4. And the answer should be the C. Let's check the answer and the answer is C. As per the Government of India Act 1919, the subjects were divided into 2 lists, reserved list and transferred. Reserved subjects included subjects such as law, order, finance, land revenue, irrigation. Transferred subject included education, health, local government, industry, agriculture, exercise. So these are the difference between reserved and transferred list. Now we'll discuss the another question. Consider the following statement. The Montagu-Chelmsford reforms of 1919 recommended granting voting rights to all the women above the age of 21. The Government of India Act of 1935 gave women reserved seats in the legislature. Which of the statement given above is are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. So here the answer should be B, which is the 2 only. So coming to the explanation part, in 1918, Edwin Montagu, the Secretary of the State, so Edwin Montagu was the Secretary of the State and Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy, produced their scheme of constitutional reform known as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, which led to the enactment of the Government of India Act of 1919. The sole purpose of this act was to ensure Indians their representation in the government. The act introduced reforms at the central as well as provincial level. Some key reforms were diarchy was introduced and the governor was made the executive head of the province. The subjects were divided into two lists, reserved and transferred. The size of the provincial legislative assembly was increased and there were communal and class electorates. Some women could also vote, hence statement 1 is not correct. So here what are the features? So one feature is diarchy was introduced. Then the subjects were divided into the two lists, reserved and transferred. The size of the provincial legislative assembly was increased and there was also introduction of the communal electorates. So now we'll discuss some more aspects of it. The governor assent was required to pass any bill. He had also veto power, could issue ordinances. Also, the Government of India Act 1935 abolished the system of provincial diarchy. So this is very much important, that who introduced diarchy and who abolished. So the act you should remember, and instead it provided for diarchy at the center. It also provided for a federation of India consisting of the provinces of British India and most of the princely states. The act extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for the depressed classes, which is for the scheduled caste, women and workers. So that's why statement 2 is the correct one. Now we'll discuss another question. Wellesley established the Fort William College at Calcutta because, so we already had discussed about the Wellesley. So here we're going to discuss about the Wellesley. He was asked by the board of directors at London to do so. He wanted to revive interest in Oriental learning in India. He wanted to provide William Carey and his associate with employment. He wanted to train British civilians for administrative purpose in India. And the answer should be the D. He wanted to train British civilians for administrative purpose in India. Let's look for the answer. The answer is D. To train British officials, Fort William College was established by Lord Richard Wellesley, Governor General of Bengal, 1798 to 1805 in 1800. The college aimed to create civil servants who would be familiar with the Indian language, history, culture, local laws. Alongside with that, they would also receive training in Western languages and art of administration. So that's why option D is the correct answer. Coming to the next one. Consider the following statement about the Charter Act of 1813. It ended the trade monopoly of East India Company in India except for trade in tea and trade with China. It asserted the sovereignty of the British Crown over the Indian territories held by the company. The revenues of India were now controlled by the British Parliament. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, 1, 2 and 3. So let's look the answer. The answer is A, which is 1 and 2 only. So here we are going to discuss that why this is incorrect, because British was very much interested in revenues, and here the statement 3 is talking about the revenues of India. So here now we are going to discuss that what was the British take of the revenues of India. So now we'll discuss. The Charter Act of 1830 was the second charter passed by the British House of the Commons for controlling the financial affairs of the East India Company. Although the act renewed the charter for a further period of 20 years, it took away the exclusive privilege of the company to trade in India. Some of its provisions are as follow. It ended the trade monopoly of the East India Company in India except for trade in tea and trade with China. So whenever we'll get this fact, you should remember this Charter Act of 1813. Hence statement 1 is correct. It also asserted sovereignty of the British Crown over the Indian territories held by the company. So that's why statement 2 is correct. It defined for the first time constitutional provisions of British Indian territories. The company retained the possession of territories and revenues for 20 years more without prejudice to the British Crown. So that's why 3 is not correct. It granted permission to the missionaries to come to India and engage in religious proselytization. So what is this proselytization? So it means that one is coming to your country and they are telling the other people that leave your existing religion and this religion is supreme, so you should follow this particular religion. So this is about this proselytization. The act provided for a financial grant towards the revival of Indian literature and promotion of science. It set aside 1 lakh for the education. So this is whole about the Charter Act of 1813 and they can ask any aspects of it. So do remember the features of the Charter Act of 1813. Now we'll discuss the ISGS Foundation course and what are the key features of this ISGS Foundation course. And this is for the online 1000+ hours of classes, unlimited view time, prelims test series, English medium. And if you want to know more information, you can call on to the number 87501. So coming to the next one. Who among the following was associated as secretary with Hindu Female School, which later came to be known as Bethune Female School? Annie Besant, Devendranath Tagore, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Sarojini Naidu. So many of you would be confused between Annie Besant, Sarojini Naidu, but the answer is C, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Let's look the explanation part. In 1849, the Hindu Female School was founded by J.E.D. Bethune. So here you should not confuse who has founded the Hindu Female School. So it was founded by J.E.D. Bethune. In 1856, the British government took charge of the Hindu Female School and later renamed it as Bethune School. Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was made the secretary. Vidyasagar was the celebrated social reformer and relentless supporter of the women empowerment, and his biographer Sambhu Chandra Vidyaratna acknowledged in the biography that Vidyasagar's appointment encouraged many girls to be part in the school and to attend the school. So it encouraged many Hindu girls. So that's why option C is the correct answer. Now we'll discuss another question. In the context of Indian history, the Rakhmabai case of 1884 revolved around women's right to gain education, age of consent, restoration of the conjugal rights. And Rakhmabai case is all about the two aspects, age of consent and restoration of the conjugal rights. So that's why the option B should be the correct answer. Let's see. So option B is the correct answer. So here we are going to discuss about the Rakhmabai. So Rakhmabai became the first women doctor to practice medicine in British India. So here we are giving you a brief introduction about the Rakhmabai. Now we are going to discuss about the conjugal rights. So Rakhmabai made her mark in history due to the legal case she was involved in, which contributed to the enactment of the Age of Consent Act 1891. And what happened that in 1885, when Rakhmabai was 12, after the 12 years of her marriage, she was asked to stay with her husband in the jail, and Rakhmabai refused to do so because she said that when the marriage was happening, my consent was not taken. So that's why she had fought for the women's consent and conjugal rights. So we should know Rakhmabai for her revolutionary achievement in the terms of the women empowerment and women rights. Now we are going to discuss about the another question with reference to the history of India. Ulugh Gulan or the Great Tumult is the description of which of the following events? The Revolt of 1857, the Mapila Rebellion of 1921, the Indigo Revolt of 1859 to 60, Birsa Munda's Revolt of 1899 to 1900. So whenever you hear the word Ulugh Gulan, so Ulugh Gulan is associated with the Birsa Munda. So the Birsa Munda Revolt of 1899 to 1900. Now let's discuss the explanation. Birsa Munda was born in the Munda tribe and he fought against the landlord and the British system who were capturing the tribal's land, and Birsa Munda was, and still he is known as Dharti Aba. It means that earth father, and you can see that he is widely celebrated in India, and on his birth anniversary we celebrate a day. In the comment section you have to tell me that his birth anniversary is marked as which day in India. And Birsa Munda led the rebellion that came to be known as Ulugh Gulan. So that's why Ulugh Gulan is associated with the Birsa Munda. So because of his protest, there was what you can say passing of the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act in 1908, in which there was what you can say restriction on the passing of land from tribal to the non-tribal population. So this is about the Birsa Munda revolt. Now we are talking about the another question. The Vital Vidhwansak, the first monthly journal to have the untouchable people as its target audience, was published by Gopal Baba Walgankar, Jyotiba Phule, Mohandas Karamchandra Gandhi, Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. So many of you must be confused between Gopal Baba Walgankar and Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, but the answer is A. So what is the best feature about this particular thing? So Gopal Baba Walgankar, also known as Gopal Krishna, was born into a family of untouchable and from the Mahar caste in Raigad district of Maharashtra. He was the first to fight for the rights of the Mahars in Maharashtra, and he retired from military service in 1886 and mobilized people and made them conscious about their human rights. Gopal Baba began publishing the monthly journal titled Vital Vidhwansak, and this theme of this particular journal was to destroy the Brahmanical and ceremonial pollution, which was the first to have the untouchable people as its target audience. So that's why the option A is correct. Now we'll discuss the another question, which with reference to land reforms in independent India, which of the following statement is correct? The sealing laws were aimed at family holdings and not individual holdings. The major aim of the land reform was providing agricultural land to all the landless. It resulted in cultivation of cash crops as a predominant form of cultivation. Land reforms permitted no exemption to ceiling limits. So here the answer should be the B. Now let's look, the answer is B. So as you already know that in India, land reforms, the distribution of land is a major issue in our country, and it is still a major issue in our country. So here we'll briefly discuss about the land reforms. So the land reform constitute the most important measure in India to improve the economic condition of agriculture tenants. The land reforms in the post-independence period evolved through different phases, and these include abolition of intermediaries, tenancy reforms, consolidation of holdings and determination of holdings per family, imposition of ceilings, and unit of application of ceilings differed from state to state. In Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, it was on the basis of landholder, whereas in other states it was on the basis of family. Because land holding, land reform is a big issue, because most of the land is based on the caste, and we can see that the people who belongs to the upper strata, they consist very small amount of the population. But if you'll see the land holdings by them, so they are the ones who have a huge land holdings. So there is an unequal distribution of land in India, and it is still an issue. So here we have to also think that what is the current land reforms we have. But this is for the history and what we have been asked for. So now we are going to discuss about the IAS Prelims Test Series 2025, as this whole session is targeted for your prelims preparation. So here we can see what are the key features we have. Comprehensive coverage, subject-wise evaluation, detailed explanation, and the medium is English. If you want to know more information about such things, you can call on to the number 87501 87501. You can also download the Drishti Learning app. And also what we have gathered from this whole discussion, we had discussed about the tribal revolts, we had discussed about the women rights, and there are other revolts which are related to the women rights, which are related to the tribal revolts. You must remember all those revolts also. Suppose that we have this Santhal rebellion, we have this Paharia rebellion, we have so much of the women rights, that who had fought for the Sati Pratha. So these are the important questions which you have to check down again, and you have to revise it again. You have to if you're talking about the modern India, you have to talk about the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, you have to talk about the B.R. Ambedkar, you have to talk about the M.K. Gandhi, what are their contribution, the round table conferences. So these are the important topics which needs revision. Then you have to make a clear revision of all the movements in the, what you can say, 20th century, Quit India movement, then Swadeshi movement. So who had started it, which leader was associated with movement, which area was affected. So these are the things which you have to revise it again and again. Also for this session, we have Telegram links for the PDF in the description, so do check out. And we had also pinned a mock question for you, practice question for you. So kindly answer that question into the comment section. That's it for today's session. I hope you like this session. If you have any queries related to this session, kindly ask into the comment section. Thank you. Have a nice day.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.